What if the most unforgettable Christmas moment of the season did not happen on a grand stage, under flashing lights, or in front of screaming crowds, but quietly, almost invisibly, between two people whose chemistry has always felt a little too real to ignore? Right now, right before the next revelation, is your chance to stay connected. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss another powerful story, another shocking twist, or another unforgettable journey. This is the story of Kai and Songyun, and a Christmas moment so gentle, so beautifully understated, that it felt less like celebrity news and more like a scene lifted from a film that never needed a script. In an industry built on spectacle, their moment stood out precisely because it refused to shout. It arrived softly. Christmas has a way of stripping life down to its emotional core. The noise fades. The year slows. What remains are memories, warmth, and the people who make silence feel full. For Kai and Songyun, this Christmas felt like that kind of pause, a quiet chapter written between breaths, where nothing dramatic needed to happen for everything to feel meaningful. There were no official announcements, no staged photographs, no dramatic declarations, just a feeling that fans recognized instantly. That familiar, almost aching sense that something real was unfolding in plain sight. Kai has always carried a certain stillness about him. Even at the height of fame, there is an introspective quality to the way he exists in the public eye, as if part of him remains untouched by the noise. Songyun, on the other hand, radiates warmth. Her smile does not demand attention, it invites it. Together, their energies meet in a way that feels balanced, unforced, and deeply human. That Christmas moment, however it truly unfolded behind closed doors, felt like the intersection of those two worlds. Imagine it not as a headline but as a scene. A winter evening. Soft lights reflecting off glass. The city outside alive with movement, but somewhere inside, time slows. Perhaps there was laughter, low and unguarded. Perhaps there was quiet conversation, the kind that stretches comfortably, where words are optional. Perhaps there was nothing more than shared presence, the most underrated intimacy of all. What made this moment beautiful was not what was seen, but what was felt. Fans noticed the subtle changes, the gentler expressions, the warmth that lingered just a little longer. The way their names, spoken together again this Christmas, felt less like coincidence and more like continuity, as if the universe, or fate, or timing itself had decided to circle back to something unfinished. In the world of Chinese entertainment, chemistry is often manufactured, rehearsed, polished for the camera. But every once in a while, there is a pairing that resists performance. Kai and Songyun have always carried that quiet resistance. Their connection does not announce itself. It reveals itself slowly, through comfort, through ease, through moments that feel lived rather than acted. Christmas, with all its symbolism of home and belonging, only amplified that feeling. This was not about romance confirmed or denied. It was about atmosphere, about the way two people can occupy the same emotional space without explanation, about how some connections do not need labels to feel profound. There is something deeply cinematic about that. In documentaries, the most powerful scenes are rarely the loudest ones. They are the moments where the camera lingers, where nothing is rushed, where the audience is trusted to feel rather than be told. Kai and Songyun's Christmas moment felt exactly like that kind of scene, one that invites interpretation but never demands conclusion. And maybe that is why it resonated so strongly. Because in a year filled with chaos, scandal, and spectacle, this moment reminded people of something softer. That connection does not always need confirmation. That beauty can exist quietly. That sometimes, the most meaningful stories unfold when no one is trying to tell one at all. As Christmas passed and the lights dimmed, the feeling lingered. Not as gossip, not as rumor, but as a question. What happens when two people who feel like home find themselves sharing the same season, the same silence, the same moment in time? Perhaps the answer is simple. Something beautiful happens and the world feels it, even if it never fully sees it. And perhaps that is where the story truly deepens, not at the moment itself, but in what followed after. Because the most telling part of any beautiful moment is not how it begins, but how it echoes. After Christmas, something subtle seemed to shift. Not loudly enough to spark headlines, but gently enough that those who were paying attention could feel it. Soo Kai and Songyun did not change who they were. Instead, they seemed more settled within themselves, as if something private had been gently aligned. The kind of alignment that does not need explanation because it brings clarity rather than confusion. There is a rare intimacy that exists when two people share an understanding that belongs only to them. It is not about secrecy. It is about safety. That Christmas moment felt like the creation of such a space, a quiet refuge carved out in a world that constantly watches, judges, and speculates. For Soo Kai, whose career has often placed him in roles defined by strength and restraint, the season seemed to soften his edges. There was a calm in him, the kind that comes from emotional grounding. For Songyun, whose warmth has always been her signature, there appeared a deeper stillness, a confidence that does not need to shine outward because it is already steady within. Together, even in absence, they felt present. This is how meaningful connections often reveal themselves. Not through declarations, but through consistency. Not through spectacle, but through peace. When two people do not need to prove anything, their bond becomes visible precisely because it is unbothered by attention. Fans began to speak less about what might be happening and more about how it felt. That alone says everything. The narrative shifted from curiosity to quiet admiration, from speculation to reflection. Because sometimes a moment resonates not because it promises something dramatic, but because it reminds people of something true. Christmas, after all, is not about grand gestures. It is about returning to warmth, to sincerity, to the parts of ourselves that feel most real. In that sense, Soo Kai and Songyun's moment was never just about them. It became a mirror, a reminder of shared glances across crowded rooms, of conversations that last longer than planned, of comfort found unexpectedly in someone who feels familiar, even when the story has not been written yet. And perhaps that is why this moment refuses to fade. Because it exists outside the usual arc of celebrity storytelling. There is no beginning that demands an ending. No promise that needs fulfillment. Just a chapter that stands beautifully on its own, complete in its simplicity. Some stories are not meant to be rushed forward. They are meant to be held. And as the year quietly turns, as winter gives way to whatever comes next, the question remains not as a demand, but as an invitation. What if this was never about confirming anything at all? What if this Christmas moment was simply about two people sharing time, warmth, and presence, and allowing that to be enough? Sometimes, that is the most cinematic truth of all.